Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth. For decades, climbers have risked everything to stand at its peak. But for hundreds, this pursuit has ended in tragedy. Today we're breaking down the grim toll of Everest. As we go, our model will map out the data, revealing the chilling reality of climbing the world's tallest mountain. Everest has claimed over 340 lives, but the true number is likely higher. Extreme conditions make record-keeping unreliable, and many bodies are never found. Of those who have perished, an estimated 200 remain on the mountain, preserved by the freezing temperatures, frozen in the very positions they fell. These remains often serve as somber landmarks, reminding climbers of the mountain's inherent dangers. For years, climbers on the Northeast Ridge route passed by a figure in neon green boots. He was Tsewang Paljor, an Indian mountaineer who died in the infamous 1996 blizzard. His body became a well-known marker until it was moved in 2014. Frances Arsentiev, the first American woman to summit Everest without supplemental oxygen. She reached the top in 1998, but never made it back down. For years, her body lay just off the main route, earning the name Sleeping Beauty for her peaceful appearance in the snow. With such dangers in mind, choosing the right route becomes a crucial decision for any climber. Mount Everest offers two primary climbing routes, the South Col route from Nepal and the Northeast Ridge route from Tibet. The South Col route, popularised by Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay in 1953, is considered easier and more frequently climbed due to fewer technical challenges, better logistics, and warmer weather. In contrast, the Northeast Ridge route is more challenging, with harsher winds, extended time spent above 8,000 metres, and tricky technical sections like the second step, a steep rock face at extreme altitude. While both routes are dangerous, the South Col remains the most popular choice for climbers seeking a better chance at summiting. Between 2008 and 2018, 3,865 summits were recorded from the south side, with 65 fatalities. The Northeast route had 1,652 summits and 13 fatalities during the same period. It's important to note that the south side is more frequently climbed, which contributes to the higher number of fatalities. For this video, we'll follow the infamous South Col route. Base camp, the starting point for most climbers, serves as a hub for acclimatization and preparation. While deaths are rare at base camp itself, issues like altitude sickness, respiratory infections, and gastrointestinal illnesses can develop even at this lower altitude due to the thin air and exposure to the harsh environment. Climbers may face headaches, nausea, and fatigue as their bodies adjust to the altitude, which can jeopardize their chances of reaching the summit. Natural disasters such as the 2015 avalanche, triggered by an earthquake, have resulted in fatalities, highlighting that no part of Everest is entirely safe. The stretch between base camp and Camp 1 is dominated by the Khumbu Icefall, one of the most dangerous sections of the climb. This area is notorious for shifting ice, deep crevasses and avalanches, making it a grave risk to climbers and Sherpas. Approximately 25% of all deaths on Everest occur in the Khumbu Icefall. Sherpas, who frequently cross this section to set ropes and transport supplies, face an even higher risk. Notably, in 2014, an avalanche in the Icefall claimed the lives of 16 Sherpas. In total, 45 people have died navigating the Khumbu Icefall between 1953 and 2019. The risk remains just as high today, with 3 Sherpas losing their lives in this section as recent as 2023. The perilous journey through this stretch involves navigating ladders over crevasses and constantly moving ice towers, which can collapse without warning. Many climbers succumb to falls, avalanches, or accidents in this area. The climb from Camp 1 to Camp 2 crosses the Western Cwm, a relatively flat but deceptive valley that acts as a heat trap. Although this section is less technically challenging than the Icefall, the extreme heat during the day, followed by plunging nighttime temperatures, can cause severe dehydration and exhaustion. Crevasses remain a hazard, and altitude sickness begins to take a stronger toll as climbers ascend. While fatalities are less frequent in this stretch, they do occur due to falls, exposure, or altitude-related illnesses. Most climbers start the ascent from Camp 2 before dawn to avoid sun-warmed ice that can loosen and fall. Camp 3 is typically used for a brief rest or acclimatization stay, though some climbers push directly to Camp 4 to minimize time in the death zone. The climb from Camp 2 to Camp 3 involves ascending the steep Lhotse face, a wall of blue ice that requires climbers to rely on fixed ropes for security. This section is particularly exhausting and dangerous as the ice is incredibly hard, requiring crampons and ice axes for grip. Falls on the icy surface can be catastrophic, often leading to long, uncontrolled slides. Altitude sickness becomes more severe here, and climbers often need supplemental oxygen for the first time. Fatalities in this stretch are typically caused by falls, exhaustion, or worsening altitude-related conditions. The ascent from Camp 3 to Camp 4 crosses the Yellow Band and the Geneva Spur, two technically demanding sections. The Yellow Band is a strip of sedimentary rock, breaking up the ice and snow. This section requires technical climbing skills, as crampons struggle to grip on exposed rock. Many climbers slow down significantly here due to altitude fatigue. Additionally, the Geneva Spur is a rocky outcrop just before Camp 4, adding another steep climb to the already exhausting ascent. Fixed ropes help climbers scale this section. Camp 4 is located on a flat, exposed plateau, known for brutal winds and extreme cold. At this altitude, climbers enter the death zone above 8,000 metres, 26,247 feet, where oxygen levels are insufficient to sustain human life for long. Many climbers experience severe hypoxia, leading to confusion, hallucinations, and impaired judgment. Fatalities in this stretch are often attributed to falls, cerebral or pulmonary edema, and sheer physical exhaustion as climbers prepare for the final summit push. Notable cases include the 1996 avalanche, which claimed the lives of 3 climbers. Lobsang Jangbu Sherpa, a renowned Nepalese mountaineer known for summiting Everest multiple times without supplemental oxygen. Yves Bouchon, a French climber part of a French-Belgian-Swiss expedition. And Dawa Sherpa, a Nepalese climber assisting a South Korean expedition. More recently, in 2017, a climber from Slovakia died near Camp 3. The final ascent from Camp 4 to the summit is the most dangerous section of the climb. Climbers face extreme cold, high winds, and low oxygen levels in the death zone. The summit may be the goal, but reaching it is often where climbers make critical mistakes due to overexertion and limited time. 1. The balcony, a small flat area where climbers often stop to change oxygen bottles. Offers a rare rest point, but the wind exposure is intense. Many climbers turn back here due to fatigue or altitude sickness. 2. The South Summit, a false summit, often disheartening to climbers who think they've reached the top. Requires steep and exhausting climbing, making progress slow and dangerous. 3. The Cornice Traverse, a narrow, exposed ridge with sheer drops of thousands of feet on both sides. One misstep here can mean falling to death on either the Nepal or Tibet side. Many climbers have perished along this ridge due to exhaustion or falls. 4. The Hillary Step, a 12-metre, 39-foot, near-vertical rock face just below the summit. Named after Sir Edmund Hillary, who first climbed it in 1953. The 2015 earthquake caused its partial collapse, turning it into a more gradual slope. Without the vertical rock face, climbers now ascend over snow and rubble, making it technically easier, but still extremely dangerous. Heavy traffic jams occur here, leading to delays that cost lives. The summit, the highest point on Earth, barely enough space for a small group of climbers. Many spend just a few minutes here due to the extreme lack of oxygen. Notable fatalities in this section include Hannelore Schmatz and David Sharp. In 1979, Schmatz became the first woman to die on Everest. Her body remained upright near the South Col for years, eyes open and hair blowing in the wind, before eventually being pushed off by snow and wind. Nearly 3 decades later, in 2006, David Sharp collapsed near the upper part of this section. Weak and unable to move, he was mistaken for a resting climber by many who passed him, ultimately perishing alone. Additionally, the 1996 Mount Everest disaster remains one of the deadliest tragedies in the mountain's history, claiming the lives of both seasoned climbers and ambitious adventurers, as a powerful storm swept in conditions turned the upper slopes into a death trap. Among those who perished were Rob Hall, a New Zealand guide who became stranded near the south summit while assisting a climber and remained in radio contact with base camp until he succumbed. Doug Hansen, an American, collapsed nearby due to sheer exhaustion and lack of oxygen. Scott Fisher, the leader of Mountain Madness, suffered from high-altitude sickness and extreme fatigue before being found unresponsive near the balcony. Other climbers lost in the disaster include Yasuko Namba of Japan, who, at 47, was the oldest woman to summit Everest at the time, but was ultimately overcome by exhaustion and frostbite, left behind near the South Col. 3 Indian climbers from the Indo-Tibetan Border Police Expedition, Tsewang Samanla, Tsewang Paljor, and Dorje Morup, perished near the summit due to exposure and exhaustion. Reaching the summit is a monumental achievement, but the journey is far from over. Many climbers meet their end not on the way up, but on the way down. The descent from the summit back to base camp is deceptively dangerous, accounting for the majority of fatalities on Everest. Climbers are often at their weakest after pushing their bodies to the limit, and descending requires just as much, if not more, control and awareness than the ascent. Over 50% of Everest fatalities occur during the descent. In addition to exhaustion impairing judgment, the combination of worsening weather and fading daylight creates the perfect storm for mistakes. Delays caused by traffic jams or missteps can be fatal. Every extra minute spent in the death zone, above 8,000 meters, brings climbers closer to complete physical collapse. By this stage, most have already depleted their glycogen stores, making them unable to generate enough body heat, which increases the risk of frostbite, hypothermia, and blacking out mid-step. In 2019, a record number of climbers attempted to summit Everest, leading to long queues in the death zone. Climbers were forced to wait hours in freezing temperatures and with limited oxygen before being able to descend. Around 11 people died. The body's deterioration on the descent is often irreversible. Some sit down just for a moment and never get up again. Others make critical navigational errors, veering slightly off route into deadly drops or onto unstable ice shelves. Capturing every individual fatal event on Everest is challenging, but by grouping deaths into periods, I can illustrate the fluctuating trends over time and give a clearer picture of what nearly 340 casualties look like on the mountain. Over the decades, Everest has only grown deadlier. From 1922 to 1959, recorded fatalities stood at just 22, early pioneers testing the limits of human endurance. By 1960 through 1979, that number more than doubled to 47, as more expeditions pushed higher into the death zone. The 1980s and 90s saw a surge in both climbers and casualties, with 99 lives lost in just 2 decades. The trend continued into the 21st century. Between 2000 and 2019, 106 climbers perished on the mountain, the highest number yet. But in recent years, Everest has become more perilous than ever. Between 2020 and 2024 alone, 60 climbers have died, despite advancements in gear and forecasting. A stark reminder that no amount of preparation can tame the world's highest peak. These deaths serve as haunting reminders that on Everest, getting to the top is optional, but getting down is mandatory. Reaching the bottom alive is a triumph, but for many climbers, the struggle doesn't end at base camp. the human body isn't designed to endure the extreme conditions of Everest, and the after effects of the climb can last for weeks, months, or even a lifetime. Many return home suffering from frostbite, lasting nerve damage, extreme weight loss, and chronic altitude-related illnesses. Some climbers make it back down, only to succumb to delayed medical complications. Even those who return home safely often face lingering cognitive and physical issues, including memory loss, muscle atrophy, and difficulty adjusting to normal oxygen levels. Beyond the physical toll, Everest leaves psychological scars. Some climbers struggle with PTSD, survivor's guilt, or depression, haunted by the bodies they passed or the near-death experiences they endured. Others feel an unshakable pull to return, drawn back by the mountain's allure despite its deadly cost. In the end, climbing Everest is never truly over. For those who survive, the mountain stays with them forever. Whether in the form of injuries, memories, or an unrelenting desire to conquer it once more, Everest demands more than just physical endurance. It takes a piece of every climber who dares to stand on its peak.
Hey everyone, before I wrap this up, I just quickly wanted to apologize for not uploading recently. I've been in school, so I've been really busy, but I've been working on this project now for a little bit on and off, and I just really wanted to make better content than I did previously on this channel. So I hope you enjoy it. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, any feedback or changes I can do, so I can keep improving and making the best content I possibly can for everyone. Would be greatly appreciated. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and share the video. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next episode.